Jersey Joe Walcott was born on January 31st, 1914, in Pennsauken Township. Life didn't ease him in gently. It pushed him early. His father had come from St. Thomas, chasing a better life. His mother was from the same New Jersey soil he grew up on. Together, they built a home filled with children, 12 in all. Then everything changed. At just 15, Walcott lost his father. No time to grieve properly. No time to be a kid. School had to wait. Life couldn't. He stepped into the Campbell's Soup Company factory in Camden. Long hours, hard work, all for one reason: his family, his mother, his younger brothers and sisters who now looked up to him. That responsibility shaped him. But somewhere in the middle of all that pressure, he found boxing. It wasn't just a sport to him. It was something deeper, a way out, a way to carry everything he couldn't say. He looked up to Joe Walcott, a fighter from Barbados who had already made a name for himself. He didn't just admire him, he carried his name into the ring. That's how Jersey Joe Walcott was born. Part tribute, part identity, all his. And Jersey? That was personal. That was home. Outside the ring, he built a life too. He married Lydia Cream, and together they raised 6 children. Even as he chased something bigger, he never left his roots behind. This wasn't a man handed a path. He had to carve it, one step at a time. Jersey Joe Walcott turned pro on September 9th, 1930. His opponent was Eddie Cowboy Wallace. It didn't last long. One clean finish and it was over. A quiet start, but a strong one. Then came a hard part. The 1930s didn't go smoothly for him. No real manager. No steady training. Some fights here and there, then long gaps. It showed. He beat a young Elmer Ray, but also took tough losses to Tiger Jack Fox. In 1940, Abe Simon stopped him. After that, everything went quiet. For over 4 years, Walcott stayed out of the ring. While World War II was going on, he took a job just to keep life moving. No spotlight, no headlines, just work. He came back in 1944. 2 simple fights, 2 wins against Felix Del Paoli and Ellis Singleton. Nothing big on paper, but something important happened. Someone noticed him. That man was Felix Bocchicchio. Bocchicchio had his past, no doubt, but he understood boxing. More importantly, he saw something in Walcott others had missed. He stepped in, took control of his career, and gave him something he never really had: stability. For the first time, Walcott could focus fully on fighting. Bocchicchio brought in trainers. They cleaned everything up. His routine, his diet, his movement. They sharpened his footwork and made his counterpunching precise. Walcott wasn't just fighting anymore. He was thinking in the ring, and it changed everything. By 1945, he was back for real. He started beating serious names, one after another. He did take losses in 1946, to Joey Maxim and again to Elmer Ray, but this time it didn't stop him. In 1947, he came back and beat both of them. Now there was no ignoring him. He was the #1 contender in the heavyweight division. That led him to the biggest name in boxing, Joe Louis. December 5th, 1947. Walcott was 33, older than most challengers. But he didn't come to survive, he came to win. And he shocked everyone. He dropped Louis early, then again later. The champion looked human, maybe for the first time in years. But when it went the distance, the decision didn't go his way. A split decision loss. Not everyone agreed. Many writers believed Walcott had done enough. The debate spread everywhere. One judge, Ruby Goldstein, scored it for Walcott, and suddenly his name was everywhere too. Letters poured in. People argued. Some even called for changes in how fights were judged. Even Louis had to speak on it. "I know Ruby," he said. He calls them as he sees them. Still, the talk didn't die. Instead, it built something bigger, a rematch. June 25th, 1948. This time, even more eyes were watching. The fight was shown in theaters through early closed-circuit television, a first of its kind. And again, Walcott showed up. He dropped Louis once more. But this time, the champion found another gear. He pushed forward, and in the 11th, it was over. A knockout. It was Louis's final title defense, his 25th, before stepping away. For Walcott, it was another setback, but not the end, not even close. In 1949, Jersey Joe Walcott got another shot at the top. The title had been left open by Joe Louis, and standing in front of him was a sharp, calm fighter, Ezzard Charles. Walcott gave everything he had, but after 15 rounds, the decision went to Charles. Another chance gone. Still, he didn't slow down. In 1950, he stayed active. 5 fights, 4 wins. One of them, a clean stoppage over Harold Johnson, showed he still had something left. Then came 1951, March 7th, another title fight. Same opponent, Ezzard Charles, now the undisputed champion. Walcott boxed well, stayed sharp, but in the 9th, a left hook caught him and put him down. He got back up, finished strong, but once again, the judges gave it to Charles. That was 4 title losses. At that point, most people stopped believing. But Walcott didn't. Just 4 months later, he stepped in again. July 18th, 1951. Forbes Field. Same rivalry. Same stakes. But this time felt different. Walcott was in control. Calm. Patient. He picked his moments. Made Charles miss. Then made him pay. By the 7th, it was over. A left hook landed clean, and Ezzard Charles went down. That was it. At 37 years old, Jersey Joe Walcott was finally the world heavyweight champion. After all the setbacks, all the close calls, he got there. That moment made history. He became the oldest man to ever win the heavyweight title, at least for a long time, until George Foreman did it decades later. But Walcott wasn't done yet. In 1952, he met Charles one last time. Their 4th fight. It was close. Very close. In the final round, Charles came forward, throwing long shots, trying to take it. Walcott stayed smart. He moved just enough. Slipped punches. Answered back with sharp hooks. When it ended, the decision went his way. Not easy. Not clear-cut. But enough. He kept his title. And more than that, he proved something simple. He didn't need a perfect journey. He just needed one moment that finally went his way. On September 23, 1952, Jersey Joe Walcott stepped into Municipal Stadium to defend his crown. Across from him stood an undefeated force, Rocky Marciano. Right from the start, Walcott made a statement. In the first round, he caught Marciano clean with a left hook and dropped him. For the first time in his career, Marciano hit the canvas. That alone told you how serious Walcott was. As the fight went on, Walcott stayed in control. Calm, sharp. By the time they passed 12 rounds, he was ahead on 2 of the judges' cards. Marciano needed something big, or it was over. Then came the 13th. Marciano pushed him back toward the ropes. Both men threw at the same time, but Marciano got there first. A hard right hand landed straight on Walcott's jaw. Then another shot followed. Just like that, everything flipped. Walcott went down, his arm hanging over the ropes as he slowly dropped to the canvas. He couldn't beat the count. The title was gone. One moment, he was in control. Next moment, it was over. A rematch was set for May 15th, 1953 at Chicago Stadium. But this time, there was no long fight. Marciano came forward early and ended it in the first round. That was the final fight of Walcott's career. Even after stepping away, his style never faded. Walcott was known for how he moved. Not just his feet, but his upper body. He could slip punches by inches. His shoulder roll became one of his trademarks, something later fighters like James Toney studied and adapted. Then there was his footwork, the Walcott shuffle. He would switch his stance mid-action, confusing opponents and creating angles they didn't expect. That same idea later inspired Muhammad Ali to create his own version, the famous Ali Shuffle. Life after boxing didn't slow him down. In 1956, he appeared in The Harder They Fall alongside Humphrey Bogart and Max Baer. He even stepped into professional wrestling. In 1963, he faced Lou Thesz. The match had its own strange moment. Walcott dropped him, but Thesz recovered and turned it around for the win. They met again years later, with the results staying the same. Walcott kept going until 1969. Then came a different role. He became a referee. One of the most talked about nights came in 1965, Muhammad Ali versus Sonny Liston II. Ali dropped Sonny Liston early, but confusion followed. Walcott tried to control the situation, lost track of the count, and looked outside the ring for help. The moment slipped away from him. He eventually stopped the fight, but the damage was done. The controversy stayed, and it effectively ended his time as a referee, though he returned briefly years later. Jersey Joe Walcott's story isn't clean. It isn't perfect, but it's real. A man who waited years for his moment. Got it, lost it in seconds, and still left a mark that never faded. After leaving the ring, Jersey Joe Walcott stayed close to real life. No spotlight, no noise. He worked with the Camden County Corrections Department, doing steady work, the kind that doesn't get headlines but matters. In 1968, he aimed higher. He ran for sheriff in Camden County, New Jersey. It didn't go his way. He lost in the Democratic primary to Spencer H. Smith Jr. Still, he didn't step back. That same year, he was given a role in the city of Camden, Director of Community Relations. A different kind of responsibility, a different kind of fight. Then came 1971. He tried again. This time, he went all the way, defeating William Strang in the general election. Jersey Joe Walcott became sheriff. Not just any sheriff, the first African-American to hold that position in Camden County. Years later, he stepped into another important role. From 1975 to 1984, he served as chairman of the New Jersey State Athletic Commission. Back in the sport, but now guiding it, not fighting in it. The game he once battled through, he now helped shape. His name was later honored at the International Boxing Hall of Fame, a place reserved for those who left something behind in the ring. On February 25, 1994, Walcott passed away at the age of 80 due to complications from diabetes.